Personal Injury Law Show. This is a show that talks about everything relevant in the world of personal injuries and pertinent to you, the viewer. My name's Tony Carbone. I'm a personal injury lawyer of 30 years' experience. With me tonight, I've got a partner in a law firm in insurance law, Nunzio Tartaglia.
Tony, Vivian, viewers, welcome.
And the managing director of the advertising company, Vivian Ryan, marketing guru. Good evening,
Hi,
Vivian.
Tony, Nuns, viewers.
Viewers, tonight we've got a very riveting and must-see episode on Bully Zero. We're going to have the CEO of the company, Oscar Yildiz, so please stay tuned for that.
Before we kick off though, Tony, what's in the news?
Well, there's been a lot of stories, Viv and Nunz. The first one is this burned runner who wins a hefty settlement. Viv, do you want to give me the facts?
Sure. A number of years ago, you may recall that there was ultramarathon that was run in Western Australia that I think now in hindsight we could have argued should have been called off given the amount of fires that was happening, and this particular runner suffered 64% of burns to her body. And she has recently just won a settlement out of court for compensation.
Nunz,
Yeah.
Vivian said that in hindsight we could have called it off. I would have thought that based on the fact that the fires were raging and that they were running through that area, that the only sensible thing to do would have been to call it off.
Of course, when you're talking about fires and how savage they can be, it seems like that was the only logical option. And look, we've raised this event for a while on this show because it's been an ongoing saga. And look, all I can say for the plaintiff, Miss Pitt, it's fantastic that she's got some sort of compensation because it's well deserved after what they've put her through.
So it's a multi-million-dollar settlement. Do we think that that's a fair amount for compensation given the degree of burns, obviously the emotional trauma to not only herself but her partner who's been by her side every step of the way? I mean, she was told by doctors she potentially she wouldn't survive it. Is that an adequate compensation payout?
Viv, there's loss of income in that. There's also the cost of future treatment, which would be quite substantial.
Especially those type of burns.
Yep. And the reality is she was a go-getter and she had a big upside. And she's only 26, Viv.
And the great thing about this story is that she's now committed to doing another run. I think it's the Great Wall of China.
Yeah.
She's going to actually see that dream out.
She's clearly an inspirational character.
This is a very interesting story, Nuts. Right up your alley. There's a truckie who had a previous back injury over many, many years, 51-year-old, travelling on a Virgin flight. And he says that his seat, when he pushed it back, wouldn't come back up again. Now, because of the fact that he's already got a bad back, he says that flying for 4.5 hours in that position caused him substantial and permanent additional back injuries.
Yeah, look, it is a strange course of events because, a 4-hour plane ride to, I'm not sure where they're actually going.
From Sydney to Perth.
Sydney to Perth, and he's now alleging that that's the cause of an aggravation of a back injury. And the odd part about the story is that his wife was with him on the flight, and I'm just not sure why they didn't swap seats.
Well, that's the argument in defence of Virgin Airlines that have said that they actually made a number of attempts offered to move him to 8 other seats, and they weren't sure why he didn't actually swap with his wife if it was going to cause him such damage.
That's a $99 question.
But interestingly, last week you guys were talking about how do you quantify a back injury. I mean, what sort of compensation could he potentially attain?
Well, $500,000 is the maximum under the treaty that we operate under,
The civil, so it's going to be under the Civil Aviation Act.
It codifies
so it doesn't get the damages that a normal civil negligence claim would do in a work accident or TAC accident. But look, that's a lot of damages, but I'm not sure, I'm interested to see where it actually heads, that case.
I'll tell you what, you can't underestimate the significance of an uncomfortable seat.
Well, we all know how difficult it is sometimes.
My wife had a problem with her four-wheel drive and I just couldn't move it forwards after she put it back. Same situation as this. And I drove for 2 hours and my back was killing me.
You're putting a lot of pressure on your lower back when you're sort of trying to... But they also said that he could have been propped up with pillows. I mean, we use our common sense.
But what would the court do, Tony, if in the witness box he said, why didn't you swap with your wife, and could have you? And he says yes. What do you think the court would... how would they view that? Is it unreasonable to expect them to swap seats? You tell me.
She may have had
she could have had a problem
That's
too.
right, she could have had
that could be.
I mean, you don't solve a problem by creating another problem, Look, there was 8 empty seats. The reality is they should have said, Mr. So-and-so, bang, he's a new
But he's
C4.
arguing that they didn't actually give him the opportunity. So look,
I
it's
wouldn't put
something.
it past them because I'll tell
says
you what,
a full flight.
I don't want to mention other airlines' names, but they're not overly
Accommodating. They did offer him complimentary drinks, though. Paramount.
This should settle out of court, I'd imagine.
Yeah, right. Interesting. Anyway.
Oh, talking about planes and toxic air and everything, the planes stink on toxic air. Viv, this is very interesting and yeah.
Apparently, there's been over 1,000 incidents in the last 5 years of planes emitting this toxic air and fumes. And as a consequence of that, there's been a lot of chatter about what it's actually causing in terms of cancers and
Increased risk of brain cancer.
Yes.
They're alleging.
Well, Viv, what we know with the fireys, Nunz,
Yeah.
it is a toxic fume,
Yeah.
a lot of lead in the air, and there's been a lot of instances of brain tumours, etc. So you can't discount the significance of this if it is happening.
Well, it's been raised now that legal action is pending, and look, if they can prove that the fumes are causative of an increase in potential of cancer, then there arguably is a case there. But again, that's going to need evidence.
Well, that's correct. And have you seen anything in your line of work, a direct link of causation of cancers? Because this is going to be incredible in the airline industry if this gets
This
up.
can open up a can of worms.
Well, look, you can see it in the fiery scenario. You know, they've got a federal legislation, that there's a presumption that you get leukemia if you've been there for more than 5 years. You can get testicular, brain cancers. So there's a lot of literature out there, Viv. So be interesting case. What about this walk-in wounded? The Johnson & Johnson provided a hip device that was defective.
Look, this is on point.
Allegedly
Look,
defective.
I'm actually representing a client who's part of this class action now against Johnson & Johnson, or the subsidiary, which is
I thought
Deploy
you would have the 1,200.
Orthopaedics. Oh, look, I'm going for it. Tony.
It's on foot. It's on foot.
Yeah, look, this is a staggering course of events. Basically, it's a failed hip replacement device that hasn't worked. And the real disappointing part of the story is that the allegations, they've tried to cover it up and basically putting it back on the surgeon, saying, well, you're not doing the surgeries properly. It really is...
It's mind-blowing that this particular company has argued that the surgeons were at fault. And not only that, they then ramped up the marketing once some of this evidence started coming out and that there was cobalt poisoning being caused by these hip replacements. I think it's if that comes out to be true, then watch
the
this
toxicology is pretty significant too, Viv.
Look, it appears that I think a lot of those facts could be true because they've agreed on effectively a compensation package, and now it's really up to potential plaintiffs to join that action, and it's quite a complicated class action.
And let's just say, incredibly sad too. Incredibly sad.
Vivian, it's come to the end of his show for you. Thank you for coming on board as usual.
Thank you for having me.
We've got Oscar Yildiz after the break. Viewers, stay tuned. Oscar's a very passionate man. You've got to listen to what he has to say about Bully Zero. Viewers, welcome back to the show. As I said before the break, we're fortunate to have Oscar Yildiz. He's the CEO of Bully Zero. Our society these days is very much malaligned with bullying and all the events that follow that. Now, Oscar's a former mayor of the city of Moreland. He's a justice of the peace. He's been involved in so many things. Oscar, welcome aboard.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
And Oscar, these little pins that you've given us to wear, what do they represent?
Oh, look, it's a little way of creating awareness about the foundation, and we issue these out when we do our presentations to schools and workplaces.
Alan Helkick is a fellow who committed suicide knots.
Yeah.
And just briefly, give me some of the facts.
Well, look, he was, I think he was 17 at the time, but he was cyber bullied for, I think, a period of about 3 months. And look, various forms of how this happened, but basically led to his suicide. And look, disastrous, obviously, version of events. But that's what led to the creation of Bully Zero, from my understanding.
Now, Oscar, this particular young man, the parents sort of had an inkling that he was being bullied, didn't they?
They did. Look, Ali and Dina, parents were aware that there was something going on, but weren't sure what it was. That there was only a wall separating their bedroom from his, but yet this young man was receiving serious threats via social media, Facebook, and also text messages. And he resorted to something that I'm sure parents fear, and that is he took his own life on the 5th of February.
On the back of that, and the fact that you've spent a bit of time with the family, you decided to kickstart Bully Zero. Is that correct?
Yeah, look, he was one of the catalysts behind the reason why we started, but it was essentially Ali and I, Arlem's father and I, we went and visited a family in Taylors Lakes that had lost their daughter as a result of social media and a range of other issues. And she committed suicide, and it was that night that Ali and I tried to empathise with the family. But driving home from Taylors Lakes, I thought, where are all the other organisations? Where are all the resources? And I felt there was a huge gap in addressing issues with social media and also addressing issues with looking after the families left behind. So we, as a result, I was able to get 15 passionate people into a room, and from there we were able to establish a foundation. Yeah.
There's a lot of different ways of bullying someone. In the old days, people used to bully people by being physical. What are the different ways these days?
Look, there's verbal, physical, emotional, now social bullying, and from talking, I've said, Oscar, emotional bullying's the most difficult to, I suppose, control and the most damaging from what you've been saying. Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, social media, social bullying or psychological bullying, I think impacts, because it's covert, it impacts probably worse than what it would if it was physical or verbal bullying. And look, if you want to see social bullying, just come to our, come and have a look at our local government, or even government in particular, all the mind games being played, all the games behind the scenes. Unfortunately, you can't see them, and they're the ones that often hurt, because people become cynical. They start to make assumptions because they don't know. You can't control it. So, but cyberbullying is the same, and you think about the impact that cyberbullying is having on Australians, in particular our young kids. It's huge. I mean, 1 in 3 are being cyberbullied. 1 in 5 Australians are bullied, and we're the heaviest users of social media in the world. And Sydney and Melbourne are regarded as one of the probably the worst 2 cities in the world for cyberbullying.
Just an example, I guess, on the footy field. One thing we don't tolerate anymore, Oscar and Nunz, is the way you treat the Indigenous footballers, for example.
Yep.
Okay. And I recall when I was speaking to Dermot Brodie, the Hawthorn champion, that he said Dipio Domenico was probably the most bullied person he's ever come across on a footy field in his life. And yet, if it's to do with Indigenous, there's a stop to that now. How do you find the way they're treating the Europeans and that?
Oh, look, bullying, racial bullying, there is racial bullying as well, but does bullying happen in sporting clubs? Absolutely. There's in fact a football league at the moment that's bullying another club, or alleged to be bullying another club. So does it happen within football clubs? Is it happening at schools? Is it happening at workplaces? Bullying happens 24/7. And I think the invention of social media, Facebook and Twitter and all those other apps, and mind you, there's just over 1 million apps out at the moment, they're making it easier, because by remaining anonymous, you can say what you wouldn't say to someone in a face-to-face situation via social media. You think about the Essendon football players and what they had to put up with last year with all the text messages and inappropriate messages they were receiving. It's just any form of bullying is not acceptable, Tony. And regardless whether it happens on the footy field, whether it's racial bullying, whether it's any form of bullying.
But just on that point there, Nunz, legally, all these cyberbullying, involving text messages, Facebook and Twitter, eventually at some point in time, the companies that run those organisations will be exposed to some sort of litigation if they can't work out a way of preventing it. Isn't that correct?
Look, of course, and I think that's another issue it could be a big can of worms, that one, because that could just go on for years and years. But my question to you, Oscar, what's Bully Zero's plan of attack to try and reduce or prevent some of these instances?
Nunz, I think that the best way is to educate as many Australians as we possibly can. We go out to schools, we go out to workplaces, we go out to sporting clubs, your Rotary clubs, your Lions clubs. We go out to as many organisations as we can to deliver the message that bullying is inappropriate.
Does it need like an awareness program like the TAC does with their road accidents?
Absolutely. We've got a number of initiatives that we're involved in, and in terms of creating awareness, I think one good thing we've been able to do in the last probably year is in fact create a lot of awareness around anti-bullying. And you look at the number of initiatives we're engaging with a range of our charity partners. I mean, every day we're involved in some form of getting the message out there that bullying is not accepted. So, look, education's one way, but there's a range of other... In fact, today we've got a TV ad going out on Channel 10, communicating the message that cyberbullying is inappropriate. So, and again, being on this show here tonight, I'm hoping that the viewers will watch this show and say, well, you know, it does impact a lot of Australians. And, you know, the good old adage, sticks and stones will break my bones and words will never hurt me. Well, that's not the case.
Well, Oscar, it all starts in the home, doesn't it? I mean, your child's behaviour, whether you're respectful towards someone else, really depends on how mums and dads raise their children.
Oh, look, Tony, bullying, you're not born as a bully. Bullying behaviour is behaviour that is learned. You can certainly unlearn that behaviour as well, but it's learnt from your surroundings and your community. And if bullying's happening at home, I can guarantee you it'll continue into school and into the workplace and into that person's adulthood.
The scary part about it is that you sometimes don't notice when someone's being bullied, like, you know, the Halkich family. Unfortunately, you know, they didn't know the extent to which he was getting cyberbullied, and, you know, if they knew, they would have done something about it. So it's sad that you can't, it's not tangible.
And he didn't speak up.
Yeah.
So Alam didn't tell his parents what was really going on. His parents didn't know. And he was, in fact, they say that he was almost 4 times over the legal limit by not sleeping and by getting those threatening text messages. That poor young man, what he went through leading up to his death
and
was disastrous.
Bullies always pick on fragile people. We're going to get our sponsors break, so after the break, we're going to explain to the bullies what the penalties are under criminal law. Welcome back, viewers. Oscar, you'll be pleased to know that now to bully someone is a criminal offence. Nunz, Section 29 of the Crimes Act.
Yeah.
In brief, what's it say?
Basically, because bullying now is such a prevalent issue in society, they've changed the law recently, Tony, where effectively bullies can get up to 10 years imprisonment, Tony, if it is proven that, one, they had intention to bully, and two, obviously that's cause effect.
There's going to come a time, Oscar, where someone's going to cop some serious jail time out of this, and that's something that you'd welcome, I'd imagine.
Oh, absolutely. We receive a number of phone calls daily regarding this, but I think a lot of people out there don't realise that bullying is a crime in Victoria, and anyone can go to jail, anyone that's, you know, over the age of 10. And when you go out and talk to schools, a lot of them think that, a lot of the teachers, in fact, even believe that bullying's only a crime in the workplace. It's actually a crime anywhere, whether it's cyber, any form of bullying.
At the age of 8, there's a presumption that you can commit a crime at law. That's a general presumption. Nunz, there's even a nice big carrot for employers to make sure that people are doing the right thing, which is a Fair Work Act 2009 Commonwealth, 351 of the General Protections Law. Why is there such a big carrot to do the right
Effectively,
thing?
Tony, they can get fines up to, for individuals, $3,000 and for body corporates of $33,000. So that's the criminal penalties, if you are found bullying. And then there's the massive penalties, which is the civil remedies.
Viewers, what you should know, especially employers, if there's bullying going on at the workplace and you can substantiate it, there's no cap on damages. In other words, it's open slather. So it's a real big deterrent to employers to let it go on.
Tony, what's the difference between that and, say, a work cover bullying case?
Well, with work cover, you generally got to get a serious injury certificate from the courts. And then when you run your case again, Oscar, and this is the sad part, you've got to go before a judge and a jury. The insurers generally want juries because they're pretty unsympathetic, because you need witnesses. Whereas if you go to the federal court, viewers, the judges are generally very open-minded, and I think you get a better run on this.
An example, Tony, was that Rivers case recently where the girl who was...
Sexual harassment.
At work, and look, it's undisclosed how much he received, but it
substantial.
Was pretty substantial.
Yeah. So. And also the case in Sydney, you know, the David Jones case where she got a massive payout too, and that was sexual harassment again.
Yeah,
So, Oscar, you've got a lot of partners to help your organisation prosper, and Nawiki Carbone have joined forces as well.
Yeah, we're absolutely pleased with that, and what a law firm to be involved in, a passionate law firm trying to make a stance against bullying. And you did mention our colours. Our colours do match, and this is the national colour against bullying. Look, I think our experience so far with Nawiki has been fantastic, to say the least.
Thanks, Oscar. I appreciate that. Our firm's very passionate when it comes to pursuing claims of this nature.
Yeah.
Now, we've had a lot of instances. We've done that airline case, if you recall,
Yep.
and a lot of other cases. We can not only help the worker get compo, but also under the amendments to the legislation, we can stop bullying. Is that correct?
Yeah, look, Tony has said now, because it's such a big issue now, there's so many ways of preventing bullying. Like even now with the Fair Work Act, they've got to stop bullying orders where
Yes.
you can stop an employer from bullying you, which is, look, I think that's a double-edged sword because you're still in the same working environment. So I don't know if that solves the issue, but you can. There's other means of trying to prevent, such a serious issue of bullying now, and it shows the society's getting there. But has it gone far enough yet, Oscar? What do you think?
The message needs to get through to employers in particular that they can no longer turn a blind eye to bullying. But any organisation, whether it's again, whether it's a sporting club or a government organisation, need to think twice about the impact that bullying's having on the victim, but also the family and friends. And it does. It affects all parts of your life, from your social life to your training to everything else. So bullying in Australia is growing at a rate, and they're saying by 2020 it'll be the biggest social issue facing Australians. It's growing at a rate where we just can't keep up with the challenges.
That's why we need education. Nonce, the stop bullying order is very important for a number of reasons. Once you get the order, and if it continues, then it assists improving your work cover case.
Yeah.
Apart from a
Because
general
obviously,
protections
if
claim.
things don't improve from then on, then you've obviously put them on notice
Exactly.
and they're aware of the
Exactly.
situation.
Oscar, there's a lot of initiatives by your organisation which is going around to schools and clubs and corporations, but also you've got a massive dinner coming up in October. Tell us a bit about it.
Absolutely. And how do we fund all those sessions that we deliver? We don't charge to deliver the sessions to schools. And that's because of money that we were able to raise at last year's dinner. So every dollar raised at last year's dinner is going straight back into programs at schools. And we've got another dinner on this year on Saturday the 11th of October at Etihad Stadium. Last year we booked the venue for 300 and we had 1,236 people turn up. This year we're hoping for the same numbers. Constantino, Joe Avardi, we've got a number of other surprises planned for the night. And we ask viewers, if people are watching, if we've got viewers watching this show, can I please encourage you to visit our website at www.bzaf.org.au and please go on and have a look at the dinner, and we would hope that people can buy some tickets and perhaps some tables.
Nonce, from a legal perspective, how can you help people? I mean,
Well, look, I think, personal injury, a lot of people relate personal injury law to physical injuries, but there's a lot more behind that. There's the psychological injuries, and obviously with that becomes bullying, and there's so much more protection afforded to plaintiffs these days that they're finally getting, I think, justice. And look, it still hasn't gone far enough in my eyes, but it's getting there. And so,
yeah, exactly. And I don't think we need to wait for a case to happen for people to contact Nawiki. Just one thing, if I can say, that the pain suffered at the centre of the brain when you receive a physical knock is almost, psychologists are comparing that knock and the pain in the brain the same as a verbal a verbal attack, or maybe even a social form of bullying, or even cyberbullying. So it does. People are all different, and it does have an impact on people differently. And bullying for young people, we don't realise that a young 15, 16-year-old really is still only 15 and 16, and the pain that person can go through if they're vulnerable can be huge. And the families that are left behind, we're picking up the pieces. And I'll tell you now, it's tough. It's tough for those families, but it's also very hard for the friends of those families, of those lost young kids. But it's not just kids. We look at Charlotte Dawson, and she was 48 at the time. So it doesn't just happen to young kids. It happens to all of us. And are we becoming a bit of a nanny state? I don't think so. I think we just need to be careful in how we behave and be a little bit more empathetic to other people when we're talking.
We've got a lot of information we want to give to the public, so we'll have to get you back on.
Okay.
Just quickly, before we go, viewers, in the case of schools, they've got a non-delegable duty of care to ensure that their students are looked after, and also the teachers. And in the case of Gregory and State of New South Wales, where the victim was regularly called sterile, faggot, pedophile and Nazi, the court awarded $470,000 in damages. So, viewers, you've got to be aware and also educate your kids, because eventually you're going to get sued. The kid will get sued. A judgment's good for 15 years, and the school system's going to get sued as well. So apart from the fact that you're damaging these the victims, and a lot of them are committing suicide, sadly, you will destroy your futures, because once you've got a judgment like that or a criminal conviction, it does damage your reputation, doesn't it?
Look, of course, and look, we raised it on last week's episode of how now prevalent it is with bullying at schools and how it's costing the system a lot of money as well. Not only the criminal ramifications, but the monetary ramifications. So,
we've come to the end of the show, viewers. Oscar, thank you for coming on board. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Oscar.
Thanks for
Appreciate
having
it.
Viewers, go to our Facebook page, Twitter, give us your comments, stay tuned for future episodes, and always remember to stay safe.